the army had moved for the southern campaign. So the Hashmi Kal, the central army, was not available in Delhi. So whatever resources Alauddin Khilji could gather from the surrounding that Hashmi Atraf, the provincial soldiers, they were employed, and therefore the necessity of elephants was very important. And never out of the 19 battles which were contested between the Mongols and Alauddin Khilji, there have been two occasions under the Khiljis, I would say. Two occasions when there was a treaty. Two was with Jalaluddin Khilji, despite the fact that he had won the battle, and 17 occasions in fact Alauddin Khilji was victorious. So much so that the army of the Delhi Sultan had gone up to Ghazni. He adopted a method of a forward policy, going into the heart of the Mongols and attacking them. So elephants did play a role if you employ them effectively in a battle. Number two, you find that the increase for demand of elephants forced them to have more aggression to the south and towards Bengal, because these were the only two sources of elephants. So they had to contest with the Riyaz Shahi, also Orissa, bring in elephants, and from the south, from Mabad, Gwar Samud, all these areas, they were bringing elephants. But the south was also profitable for another thing, because in South India you don't have horses. All horses were imported. So once the battle is over, all the imported horses would come into the stables of Alauddin Khilji. These were the reasons for them moving towards the east and the south. But he had never annexed those empires, those kingdoms. He was only satisfied within the Narmada, not beyond Narmada. Because those were the areas which would effectively control through the mechanism of the administration. Deterioration in this setup started after Firoz Shah, not during Firoz Shah. Please keep this in mind. Alauddin Khilji had 250,000 soldiers in Delhi itself, over 3,000 elephants. At the time when the Indian ruler, last Tughlaq ruler Sultan Mahmud faced Taimur, he had only 250 elephants. Throughout the period of Firoz Shah, there has never been a Mongol invasion. And let me add that when this very feeble army, in our sense as historians or scholars of history or students of history, compared to the Tughlaqs and the Tutmish and Khaljis, the army at 1398 was very weak. Still, Taimur did not have the guts to come directly and conquer Delhi. He asked his grandson first to move towards Delhi. The terror of the Delhi Sultanate army was still lingering on into the hearts of the Mongols. When Pir Muhammad was successful, then only Taimur came. I don't consider Taimur to be a great general. He could have come directly like Genghis Khan, or Mahmud Ghazni, or any other invader, or Shahabdin Ghori. But he never came to India without knowing that no, the army is weak after Pir Muhammad had defeated the Delhi soldiers. Now let us move towards these changes. Okay, let me tell you, just taking a clue from what Madam just said about the march of the army. Let me tell you, when the army is marching, you have a very large contingent. It was a separate division which carried provisions on back of camels or wagons drawn by camels. They were also fast moving. It is not that the horses are moving fast and you remain behind with bullock carts. It's not so. There were camels who were employed, who fought along with the army. All provisions of war, all artisans who will repair the armors, repair the arrows, repair the soldiers, repair the stirrup and the arrow. So this class was also there. The regular soldiers were also there. You had talayas who were scouts and spies. Before the army could reach a battlefield, they would be asked to move around, get information. It was in this manner that army used to move. The whole city on move. And very wonderful arrangement for tents and lighting of fire. They would be away from the city or inhabitation, but not far enough to be devoid of any provisions. If they needed anything, they will go back to the villages. You need wood, you get it from the villages. Because you need to have campfires at night. Now, why was the campfire important? Not only to see each other, but to deceive the enemy. One soldier would light 4 campfires. It would give an impression of a very large army. If it is 1,000 soldiers, it would appear to be 4,000 soldiers. It was a strategy to have campfire. And then what they would do is to have a deceitful action. They would ask the soldiers to move away at night, a division of the soldiers. And early morning, by beating drums and trumpet, they would again come into the camp, giving the impression that reinforcement is coming. That also was a deterrent to the opponent. That he has come with a small bunch of soldiers, now you find that he is getting reinforcements. This practice to go on when the army is camping. Now I should come to 1526. This is what was happening. Elephant, cavalry, infantry. Ibrahim Lodi did not deviate from this step. He continued with the traditions which the Delhi Sultan were doing. And he had over 2 lakh soldiers. 2 lakh soldiers in the sense there were many irregulars and many who were recruited at a time prior to the engagement with Babur. Now, all of a sudden, you don't have an attack on any territory. You need to have a supply line controlled through the force which you had captured on way to Kashmir. Here you find Babur had come from Kabul. When Shahabuddin Ghori came, I told you that he had captured a large number of force all along the line to supply with the provisions and soldiers if needed. Babur had to do the same thing. Starting from Kabul, I am now going to the political scenario of Daulat Khan and Alam Khan. These were deceitful people who deceived Babur, saying that they were going to join him and ultimately did not do. But he had the chain of force behind him. And there were also stationed soldiers. So he had come with 8,000 soldiers only because the rest of the soldiers were placed along the forts. Now 8,000 soldiers and you have 2 lakh soldiers of Ibrahim Lodi. Massive division spread all over. And if he is placing his soldiers in battle formation, that would be very short, very small. He can be engulfed by the army of Ibrahim Lodi. The strategy of Babur was to encircle the army through his Tuluma tactics. But with Ibrahim Lodi, it would be the other way around. Man, I'm just giving you the scenario. Babur's strategy has always been to employ the Tulama tactics and attacking the enemies through his wings, going around the side and also behind. The main central force would be stationed in the center. Now you don't have that number of soldiers to encircle the army of Ibrahim Lodi because you will be stretched. You will have very small bit of soldiers remaining in the center. That would be very fatal. For that, what Babur did was that he had to safeguard his wings. So on the right was Panipat. And at that time, Babur said it was a big city. He does not say it is a village. Village of Panipat, hum log aaj kehte, it was a city having large inhabitations. On the left, he dug trenches, had trees cut down and made barricades so that the soldiers of Ibrahim Lodi cannot employ the strategy of encircling the forces of Babur. Alright? He has to save his own soldiers, minimum casualties. And to give an impression that he is having a large army, he divided into soldiers into many parts. The center was divided into right wing of the center, left wing of the center. The right wing was divided into right wing of the center, the left wing of the center. Similarly for the right wing and also the vanguard. So it would just spread out. And he has to use, is forced to use the Tulakma tactics, without which Babur cannot move. He had his cannons and musketeers. So Ustad Kudi was having the cannon, Mushtaq was having the musket with him. Mustafa Khan with him. That is handguns and cannons. That has to be employed. The problem is a cannon, after discharging the first fire, would have to wait for half an hour for the barrel to cool down and then fire the next missile. Alright? So for half an hour that is ineffective. And Ibrahim Lodi would take advantage of this half an hour. So either you use all the cannons simultaneously or use one by one as per the exigencies of time. But they were supposed, a cannoneer would not move away. Soldiers can move from one place to another. He is static, an easy target. So he employed wagons. Now say from where did he get the wagons? Wagons were those which he had bought with him, carrying the provisions. He used them, not the big bullock carts we have today, they were small ones. And the rest he got it from the village, the city of Panipat. And he ordered many also to manufacture these carts. These were placed in front, and behind them were the mantlets. The mantlets were not made of iron or steel, because you only have to save yourself from the arrows. For that, a wooden planks was enough, or series of wooden planks tied together. Correct? So the cannoneer is safe. And what was the wagons doing? They were placed horizontally all along the line. There were 700 carts. Why horizontally? And they were tied along, the cannons were tied along with the wagons or the carts. And after a line, after every one bow shot at 150 meters, you have got a gap for the soldiers to move in and alright, it was not a defensive strategy. There are historians who say that Babur employed these wagon carts and mantlets. It was defensive, constructing a fort in front. A fort would never have breaches in between. So that was to allow his cavalrymen to move in, give a fight and then come back again. So by the time the cannon was cooled down, these soldiers would move in and give a fight and then come back when the cannons are ready. Alright? You have placed it in a horizontal manner. They have wheels. The cannons too have wheels. So once you discharge the cannon balls, the recoil would push back the cannon. No, if the wagons are placed vertically, then the wheels and the cannons would move simultaneously behind. And that will spoil the formation. To make the cannons static, the wagons were the deterrent because they were placed horizontally. It can move this way, not this way. So after one fire, number one has to wait, then the second and the third, like that they will stay. But how can you make this deficiency of half an hour effective? There have been a gap of 4 days. Everybody, Ibrahim Lodi testing Babur, sending a small contingent. Humayun goes there and defeats them. At times Babur also goes and teases the soldiers of Ibrahim Lodi. This just to test the strength of each other's soldiers. It was a practice. But Babur felt that if he spent more time here, that would lead to a problem of the soldiers being dissatisfied, they'll get agitated, whereas Ibrahim Lodi may start recruiting more soldiers. So ultimately, he had to start the battle. Battle arrangements I have told you, each division divided into right and left just to extend the range. So what Ibrahim Lodi did was, the left wing would attack your right, alright? He asked the left wing to attack the right wing of Babur, where Humayun was stationed. And it was the charge of the cavalry. So they don't walk. They are galloping towards the enemy. So when the whole division, and that too of a very large army, when they were moving in front, you find that the placement of Babur's soldiers between Panipat and those fell trees forced them to converge into the faces of the cannons. Alright? They had to converge. So when they were converging, the front row realized that we are going into a trap, and they halted their horses. In the meantime, the soldiers who were behind, they were rushing with their command of attacking. So they were dashing against each other. The formation was disorganized. They became a block of target for the cannons to be discharged at this particular way. Is it clear?
Yes.
So when all these were happening, Ibrahim Lodi asked the other wing also to come. They made the same mistake. Again the cannons and the musketeers employed their own strategies. In the meantime, Babur asked the flanks to move and attack them from the sides, employing the Tulagma tactics. Now the front is converged. That is an easy target for the archers, for the cannons, musketeers, and when you are allowing the flanks to attack Ibrahim Lodi's soldiers from the sides, they also come in to cramp the main central division of the army. So the whole formation was disorganized. They became a chunk of huge target for the archers. Even if they shoot without aiming anybody, you find that you hit the target, because it is not a single man we are hitting at. You have got a very large spans of target available for them to shoot. So by noon you find that over 18,000 soldiers of Ibrahim Lodi were killed by the archers, by the swordsmen, and by the cannons. With this strategy you find, being in a very small position of facing a large army, Babur was able to defeat Ibrahim. No, he had come with a different motive of war, and on the battlefield he had to decide something else. That is a difference in strategy and tactics. The strategy is the plan which you already do. Tactics is at that particular time you make a change in your plan. That is tactics. I'll just give you an example. There was a master swordsman who taught his student all the his fears and techniques of swordsmanship to his student. And the student obviously excelled in all the combats. One day the student challenged the master. The master swordsman was annoyed and also depressed that he was already taught him each and everything. But he could not deny the challenge. He said, fine, but day was fixed that they would contest. The master therefore ordered a sword to be made of around 8 to 10 feet long, so that he can strike him from a distance. What he has taught him was a normal sword. He has not taught him how to wield a sword of 10 feet long. The student came to know about it. He manufactured a sword of 15 feet long. That before the master could reach me, I will attack him before he could attack. Then finally with the long swords they came to the contesting area. So when they were asked to commence the duel, the master swordsman took forth a normal sword and rushed and killed his opponent because he was trying to pull that 50 feet long sword. Alright? So that was the strategy of manufacturing a long sword. The practice was to employ a shorter weapon by which he can kill the opponent. So these are the methods of strategy which were employed in the battle. On the spot you have to make a decision. This is alright? ठीक भाई घंटा हो गया भाई तुम कह रहे थे घंटा देगा हाँ any questions मैं बैठ जाऊँ क्या यहाँ
Yes.
So just follow the instructions which your principal had told you to do.
Let me first thank you, sir. This was we all felt as if we were students in a military school and without knowing, anything. And you made it so simple. We have learnt of this, especially people like Abhi who are not, medieval scholars. We only skirmish the subject, saying, okay, this was the battle of Tarain and this was the battle of Panipat and they were decisive battle, but why they were decisive? What made them decisive, and in fact the very important question that after these battles that you pointed out, why wasn't there a rebellion to overthrow? These are very, very fundamental questions that you have said in such a simple, easy to access manner. I really thank you for the lecture, and I invite everybody to comment, question, and I'm sure sir is here to answer all your questions. Thank you so much.
I have left out many things for them to give us comments.
So who's going to go first?
Students.
Good afternoon, sir. So, my question is kind of silly. So, I came across this post on Instagram where it said that I think cats were sacred for Egyptians, and एक वॉर हो रहा था तो opponents ने जब Egyptians की army आती तो उनके सामने cats छोड़ दी. So they could not kill the cats because they were sacred for them. So as you mentioned that बाबर के starting से वो घेराबंदी करते circle बनाते थे and he did not had army. So rather than going for elephants or the cavalry as such, why did they not choose any other wild animals like tigers or bears? Like जैसे simply जैसे Egyptians के आगे cats छोड़ दे गए थे, they could simply leave those hungry wild animals in front of the opponents. आधा काम तो वहीं खत्म हो जाता.
This is another question of strategy and tactics in retrospect.
No, I tell you one thing. The other wild animals, except leopards, you cannot use other wild animals, not employ them. The leopards can be trained in 40 days. They were employed for hunting expedition. They can't sleep on your lap, they just behave like cats. But in the battlefield, the mind of these wild animals are not trained to attack an enemy. They can attack anybody. They can move around any way they want. So that would be a deterrent. Alright? The elephants, it is difficult for them to turn around. They will just move in straight. So they are easy to handle. And then the mouths they guide. You cannot sit on the back of a tiger and tell them where to go, where not to go. The horses can be guided, the elephants can be guided. But wild animals, they cannot be guided. If you can sit, then give a try. Let's see.
Thank you so much for the answer, sir.
Yes.
Mic.
Thank you so much for the lecture. Thank you so much for the lecture, sir. As you mentioned that Indians were also producing iron, manufacturing iron weapons, and they were exported as well, and other dynasties and empires like Greco-Roman Empire, they were using them efficiently, whereas we failed to employ the strategies. So why did not, the Indians realize that their weapons can be used in a similar manner like the others are using and benefiting them?
You see, the Indians were facing their own common neighbors. They were having the same strategy, so there was no point of improving upon the military technology. They were manufacturing for commercial purposes, which they were exporting. It was in great, what you say, the Damascene swords. It was the Mojadariya manufactured around River Sindh. They were all exported for all commercial purposes. Even Mojadariya, there was only one sword with Mahmud Ghazni, Mojadariya. The rest of the soldiers did not have it. It was very costly. But that was for commercial purposes, exporting outside. So whatever Indian traditions was fighting with the Chalukyas fighting the Hoysalas, they are fighting the Chauhans fighting the Garhwal fighting the Palas. So traditions of military strategy were the same. You use the same weapon which I am using. So personal prowess and large number of soldiers, whoever had large number of soldiers, they were improved. Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. सर मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि जैसा आपने बताया कि वो कमर्शियल पर्पसेस की वजह से वेपन्स बनाते थे, लेकिन सर जब आपने लेक्चर शुरू किया था तब आपका पहला क्वेश्चन ही यही था कि हाउ डिड द टेक्नोलॉजी डेवलप. तो आपने अभी जब अंकिता को आंसर किया तब आपने उसका जिक्र किया कि जो नेबरहुड्स के जो भी एनिमीज थे उनके साथ इतनी सारा टेक्नोलॉजीज़ की मतलब यूज़ ही नहीं था. तो फिर सर इंडिया में इतने दूर की टेक्नोलॉजीज़ को मतलब किस तरीके से मैन्युफैक्चर किया जाता था, वो आइडियाज़ इंडिया में इतनी दूर से कैसे ट्रैवल हुए जबकि उनको नीड भी नहीं थी?
नहीं, इंडिया में ट्रैवल नहीं हुए. मैंने आपसे पहले ही कहा कि 1800 BC में the technology of smelting of iron took place. Alright? 1800 साल उधर करते और 1100 साल इधर करते. 33 साल का एक्सपीरियंस है हमारे. Before the battle of Tarain or Panipat and everything. So they had the experiences. Alright? What the Turkish army worried when they attacked India, then they started using this. But the raw material of using bamboos and reed, which would travel, the arrows could travel very fast. Poplar was heavy, but reed could travel very fast. So all these were available in all the fringes of hilly areas. हमारा उत्तराखंड में हिमाचल में हो सकता है, but same climate is there also in Central Asia. So availability of the material gave them. Taxi वालों को बात करें. So the availability of this material, they also excelled, India also excelled. But they knew that India is having all the qualities of, because all the artisans who were manufacturing during the Delhi struggle were Indians. All the artisans constructing the forts were Indians. हमारे पास कौन सा knowledge नहीं था, हम लोग सही इस्तेमाल नहीं किया. That is the.
If I can continue with that question. So when these swords were made in India and exported out, because they were not used, so at least after the first lot of the Islamic invasion, then did Indian army formation started using the kind of materials which were available in
Yes.
India but exported outside?
No, export did not happen. They were using it because it was a sort of a prize possession to have the Moja Kariya with you. So they were using it. The nobles, you give, send it as a gift because Alauddin Khilji used to shower gifts to Ramchandra Dev of Devji all the time. And he was a person who was invited to the wedding of Khizr Khan, the son of Alauddin Khilji, and Devarani. He was the chief guest. He remained in Delhi for 3 months. So it is just when you are, because when you have the investor from the caliphate coming, you are giving all these gifts. So it was used for those purposes. बाकी में लेके उतना नहीं जाते because आपका पूरा मैन्युफैक्चरिंग यूनिट ऐसा रहता है मास स्केल में बनाना
More decorative and purpose. Anybody else?
Yes, Samya, can I move?
जी
Okay. Am I audible? Hello. Hello. Okay, I'll stand and ask. Yeah, sir, my name is Zubair Ahmad from Political Science Department. Thanks for the wonderful lecture. You have touched upon various aspects such as strategies, weapons, diplomacy, so many dimensions you have touched upon. And it's indeed a treat to listen to you. I study conflict, that is international relations and all, and I was trying to link many of the things that you are discussing from present circumstances also. So I have two small questions. One is that forts are the base, one of the major components of the military strategy, meaning capturing the forts, right? So if you see the old forts in India, most of them are constructed on the hills. But in the medieval period onwards, the change started happening. Meaning, say now, later from medieval period onwards, the forts that were constructed, if you see, they are constructed on the ground rather than on the hills, okay, on the mountains and all these. Why this change in terms of military? That I want to know. And second thing is that you have said that Alauddin Khilji's army had 250,000 soldiers, and Ibrahim Lodi's army had 200,000 soldiers, right? So are these all soldiers part of a standing army, or this army was collected from different subas? So this is one of the things that I wanted to know. Thank you.
Fine, Zubair. See, when I'm talking about Alauddin Khilji, that is the Hashmikal, the standing army which is stationed at Delhi. Alright? I'm starting with the second question. Whereas Ibrahim Lodi army basically consisted of the Afghans. Number one. Number two, he had also alienated a number of important nobles from his administration, and therefore he had to incorporate many Indian soldiers in the army. So what Rushbrook William is actually wanting to say is that his army did not go beyond 40,000, but the rest of the soldiers which were there in the Battle of Panipat were the auxiliary forces which were called upon on the day of the battle or prior to the battle. So effective soldiers are 40, but all those who were called, they were volunteers who were fighting for the sake of money. Alright?
So that's also one of the weaknesses.
It is obviously a weakness. But he was able to marshal 200,000 soldiers, and that was creating fear in the minds of Babur. Now regarding your first question, it may come to a mind of any individual that when you are constructing a fort on the hillock, the purpose is defensive. Alright? You have to fight a battle on a battleground. And that is when you have an adverse movement, you go back into the fort and remain there allowing the invading army to besiege you or the opponent to besiege you. Whereas all the forts constructed during the time of English onwards, they were all at the ground level because the majority, all the army, the fighting forces were cavalrymen. In very short period of time, they have to arrange themselves in a battle formation. So all the cavalrymen, you see, Tughlaqabad here you have 21 gates. So once there is an alarm, that all the soldiers must come out from these gates and position themselves in battle formation. The Rajput force had only one gate. It shows the nature, the change in the nature of the utilization of force. Even when Sikri is constructed, it was just to ward off the attack of the Mongols. At that time, Jabna used to run alongside the fort of Siri. And it was at the ground level, allowing the soldiers to be marshalled in battle formation. So all the medieval forts, whatever were constructed, they were never constructed on hills. They were all constructed at the ground level to facilitate the movement of the cavalry. Whether you are going for attack or you are going for retreat. Whereas the Rajput forts were always on hillocks, it was a defense because they would just confine themselves to the fort and the countryside may go to hell. They never took care of the inhabitants. But the inhabitants were never disturbed by any invading army strategically, because if they are annoyed, you have to face a large population attacking you from all sides. You cannot concentrate on the enemy. So inhabitants were never touched upon. The crops were never destroyed because that would serve you as a provision of warfare. And the people were unconcerned about the outcome of the battle. What Professor Habib says, it is the turnover of the public opinion, thing which was long overdue. So the people were least interested. Who is the king, who is not a king. Alright? What about time?
I think we have a lot to think about, and maybe.
But one thing I missed, अब सोचे कोई ना कोई पूछ लेगा. सोचा कि उसी चला ही गया वरना हो सकता पूछ ले. There is one thing. Actually, see, my father has told me never to criticize your teacher. Alright? So despite having all evidences in my favor, I have never put it in pen and paper against my teacher, Professor Ali Athar. But knowledge has to be disseminated. So I will not commit a crime of writing, but I will take advantage that I am discussing with you. The defect which Irfan Sahib points out, that the Rajput soldier was devoid of having iron stirrup and iron shoe. है ना मैडम? आपको पूछना चाहिए था.
Because while talking about technological,
मैं जानबूझ के छोड़ा था ये.
he
कोई ना
said
कोई पूछेगा.
iron stirrup and
Horseshoes.
came with the tar. So I was,
मैडम देखिए एक चीज. None of the historians of medieval times, whether Tajul Mahasir or the Fateh Nasir, I'm talking about the Indian sources that were contemporary to the Battle of Tarain, or neither Prithviraj Vijaya, which is a Rajput source. Prithviraj Vijaya says that the Turks were having best horses. They were the best warriors, having the best horses. Tajul Mahasir and describing in details, he is not finding fault with the Rajputs, that they were not having iron stirrup or something. What Irfan Sahib has done, literary sources में नहीं मिलता. None of the literary sources, whether indigenous or Persian sources, have ever mentioned that the Rajput soldiers, the cavalry, did not have iron stirrup and iron shoes. No, Irfan Sahib chanced upon a sculpture of the horse. Right? No, you have a horse on its hind leg. The hooves, according to him, does not show the horseshoe. No, I have witnessed many such statues. Calcutta में नेताजी का statue है. मैं वो भी देखा हूँ. Modern time में बना हुआ है. He is on a horseback. एक King George VI का है statue Victoria Memorial में. उसका भी पाँव खड़ा है. It is very difficult क्योंकि वो मुश्किल से 3 सेंटीमीटर का हॉर्स शू होता है, 3 से 4 सेंटीमीटर. Correct? When that is nailed into the hooves of the horse, it is not protruding. It is completely flat. Protrude नहीं होता. तो एक sculptor जो बनाएगा, when he is making that particular portion of the horse's hoof, why should he identify the horseshoe? Because that is not visible to a sculptor. कोई protruding चीज होता तो उसको बनाता है. जो चीज flat है, how can they do it in the sculpture? This is number one. So it cannot be visible. Complete flat आप कहीं नहीं देखेंगे. किसी भी देखेंगे दिल्ली में तो हो सकता है, वहाँ दिल्ली वगैरह में हो कि अभी भी नाल ठोकते होंगे, आप देखिए इतना पतला से. It is just the nails go into the flesh of the hooves and is completely flat. Because if that is protruding, then the horse will not be able to run. It has to be flat. Regarding the stirrup, he says that the size of the stirrup is such, and having a very broad base for the soldiers to put his rest or rest his foot, gives the impression that is made of wood. I will just ask you two things. Would a soldier go into a battle with a sword made of wood or tin? अरे स्टूडेंट बताओ जाएगा क्या? A soldier would always go with the best sword made of iron and steel. आपके स्कल्पचर में जो पैनल जो इन्होंने देखा, can you identify the material of the sword, what is made of iron, copper, steel, brass, glass? वो तो पत्थर का बना हुआ है. Can you identify even in paintings, very मुगल पेंटिंग्स आप देखेंगे कि बहुत अच्छे कपड़े हैं, डॉटेड है, ट्रांसपेरेंसी है, but you cannot identify whether it is made of cotton or silk. You can say it is a very good material, but quality आप नहीं बता सकते even from the painting. A sculpture constructed, carved out in a stone, having a sword, it is your imagination, it must be of steel or iron. Alright? And seeing a broad base stirrup, you are imagining it would be of wood. Alright? Now why did I tell you that please keep these things in mind about iron? मैं हिंट दे रहा था कि आप लोग देखिए 1800 BC में we had iron smelting and we had a technology. Put a soldier, professional soldiers like the Rajputs would venture into a battlefield with a wooden stirrup, जहाँ पर अगर वो खड़ा होकर जंग करने पड़े तो टूट जाएगा. If it is raining, it will break. रात में घोड़े खड़े हैं, मॉइस्चर होगा, it will crumble down. Can any professional soldiers go into a battle having a stirrup made of wood? And that cannot be identified from the sculpture. It is broad, no doubt. But how can you say it is made of wood? Why not of iron? भाई 3000 साल का आपके पास हिस्ट्री है आयरन का. यहाँ बेस्ट वेपन्स बना रहे हैं, आर्मर्स बना रहे हैं, आर्रो हेड्स बना रहे हैं, और घोड़े पर जब बैठेंगे तो लकड़ी के उसमें बैठेंगे. ना घोड़ा लकड़ी का है, ना आपका स्टिरअप लकड़ी का है. The only thing is the defect can be also in the sculpture who is making it. He was wanting a patta sa, because when you are having the foot, he is having a boot. So he has to show it is a stirrup. Alright? So if he just has a cutting here, अब stirrup नहीं देखा, तो छोटा सा है ना. How can that be shown in a sculpture? Frontal panel है. Frontal panel में कोई चीज़ आप सामने से देखेंगे तो छुप जाएगा. तो दिखाने के लिए कि stirrup है उसने बड़ा कर दिया, तो हो गई. He has to show that what is the horseman's accessories which he is having. So if you cannot identify the metal of the carving from a statue, you cannot say it is the wood. The Indian soldiers, आप अगर उसका ये था मैडम कि आर्न ये wooden stirrup था and no horseshoes, then why do you win the first battle of the day?
Sir,
Yes.
there's also evidence of trade and horses in the start, and there's one time in the century
Centuries.
Arab horses are coming by the same way.
Yes, yes.
So, I mean, of course, technology also transfers via the same.
Does come, I'm telling you.
Given that, then how far do we take this question that we didn't have good horses or that horses were a problem in our military technology? And that's also
The Indian horses were known as Thangna horses,
Yeah.
and the areas in Uttarakhand known as Baladas. That was the breeding ground. But here, for the Central Asian, you need to have horses which are meant for traveling. You need to have horses which are meant for battles exclusively. You don't travel on those horses. You need to have horses which will carry your baggage. You need to have horses substitute during travel that you substitute the horse with another horse. So there were many categories of horses which one soldier has to go along with him. You have to keep your equipment, you have to keep a substitute horse for traveling, you have a war horse, and in case that horse dies, you need another horse. दोस्पा ये होता था उसमें, क्योंकि दोस्पा टर्म comes in military something. बलबन के पीरियड में आ चुका है. So you have different category of horses meant for other purposes, apart from pigeons. But for battle, you need a traveling horse, you need a battle horse, you need a luggage horse, provisions के लिए. All these four horses will go together with one single soldier. जी, लेकिन उसमें भी fast traveling उसमें भी होते थे. If you are going for example, around the Khilji when he attacked Devgir for the first time, in 20 days he was able to reach Devgir. You need very fast traveling horses. Because he was not wanting Jalaluddin Khilji to know that he has gone to Devgir. To keep it a secret, he had chosen those horses who were very fast. And then crossing all those hills and very narrow, what Abdul Khosrow and Khazanul Futu mentions. They were just narrow like a string of a guitar. उसमें से horses जाते, but it took only 20 days to reach Devgir.
I think this has
just मुझे मोहम्मद कर रहा है. Just Muhammad Nabi he talks about truth and physical contamination that the Indian army में physical contamination की वजह से जो है बहुत problems थी, and then जो actual fighting force था वो बहुत कम था because of Varna order. So actual fighting force कम था और जो पूरा का पूरा जो उनका जो सारे लोग जब चलते थे तो बहुत ऐसा लगता था आर्मी है, but actually जो fight करते थे वो बहुत कम था. And then physical contamination, this concept of truth was also, responsible for the defeat of Rajputs. So what is your take on this?
Islam has gone beyond that. He says that physical contamination prevented a soldier to get all the facilities because he has to cook for himself, he has to wash his own utensils, he has to repair his own bows, he has to repair his own saddle. All these things, these accessory staffs were not permitted to be in the army. This was the observation of Habib and Nizami both. They remained in that particular point. They did not deviate about the class. Now, about you talking about, it is not a small state. When it is Prithviraj, he is having from Punjab, whole of Rajputana and modern Rajputana at that time included modern Madhya Pradesh. The soldiers from this large area was there in the army. When you have a battle with Badaयूं or with Kavaringa only, or with Delhi for example and the Thomas, there were few soldiers. But Vijayanagara had a very large army because of his all unitaries which he had created. They used to supply them with professional soldiers.
And may I continue with Manisha's question? One thing, the British Indian Army had a lot of, Brahmins and Rajputs who were very, very caste conscious. No, in the 19th century, they had, and there was a lot of, they cooked their own food, they had a separate camp followers, and they defeated all other Indian soldiers. So in fact, in 1857, when Delhi was recaptured, it was recaptured primarily with Sikh and Pathan soldiers, who said 11 साल पहले तो ये पुरबियों ने हमें हराया था. So why would we now trust them? So the idea of caste in the army is very potent, but we have to look also beyond, the same caste rules were accepted by the British East India Company, and they fashioned a very, very strong army who defeated other Indians, presumably who also had the same caste distinctions. I would like to thank Sir for this very enlightening discussion. Let me invite, and just one more thing, Sir, now I'm very intrigued about the third battle of Panipat, because that is the decisive battle from where I start teaching history, and I would want to know more. We will call you again for that. Durga.
Esteemed guests, teachers and audience, I, Durga Acharya, President of the Heritage History Association, express my profound gratitude to each and everyone for making today's event possible. I extend our deepest appreciation to our speaker, Professor Ali Athar, for delivering a thought-provoking lecture that enriched our understanding. To our principal, Professor Swati Pal, thank you for providing us with this opportunity to organize such an informative session, and also for your unending support. To our respected teacher in charge, Professor Soumya Gupta, Association in charge, Dr. Natasha Nongri, teacher coordinators, and all the teachers present here, thank you for your efforts and contribution to the event. My sincere thanks to our student body for their efforts, coordination and commitment in ensuring the smooth execution of this event. We hope you all had a wonderful experience and took away valuable lessons and insights. Thank you and have a great day.
I would like to thank Durga and the whole union for their efforts to make this. They really organized this at very, very short notice, so thank you all. This was very good. The students have to go down for the refreshment, and the teachers